We're talking with Dr. John Hollister, a pediatrician at Dartmouth-Hitchcock Manchester, about ways to help prepare children for immunizations. Many children, and maybe even their parents, are worried about getting shots, especially if they can anticipate that a shot is coming or they know what they are. Let's talk first about young kids, say under the age of 4. What do you recommend to parents to help their kids get ready for an immunization?
So, a majority of the vaccines that we give are given under the age of 2. So the nice thing is, most of those kids really, for lack of a better phrase, don't know what's coming. So the nice thing is, you don't necessarily have to discuss the vaccines a lot with them or anything along those lines. It's mainly just trying to prevent, give the least amount of pain response. So I recommend for a lot of my parents that they actually give a little bit of Tylenol before the vaccines. So if you give Tylenol about 30 minutes prior to the child coming in for vaccines, it does help with the pain response. In our clinic, we also use a little bit of sugar water prior to vaccines, which helps release natural endorphins in the brain, which help also decrease the amount of pain response. And the last thing, at least in our clinic, that we do right now is we try to have multiple MAs in the room to actually give the vaccines so that they're giving 2 shots at the same time. And there's some data which really shows that people don't sort of recognize more than one pain response at a time. So we try to minimize the amount of pain as much as possible. But despite that, it is a pinch. No matter what we do, it's not going to be something which is a completely, no pain process. But it's very minor, and the children actually respond very well, especially under the age of 2 as far as it's concerned.
And then what about when they get older and they can anticipate that they're worried about this?
Children over the age of 4, you have to really tailor it depending on the individual child. I think for some children, just the anticipation of shots creates a lot of anxiety. So there are times when I recommend to parents that they don't necessarily even mention the shots until I actually bring up the shots in the room, so I can actually explain to the child why we're giving the shots and how important the shots are, and try to help sort of with that anxiety aspect of things. But despite that, pretty much every time the kids go to the doctor nowadays, they think, one of the possibilities of what's going to happen is a shot. So I don't think that you want to lie to them, but I think giving them the ability to understand that vaccines are there for a reason, that they're there to keep them healthy, and that we really do our absolute best to try to minimize the amount of pain and stuff like that. I think that sort of reassurance a lot of kids will respond to. But it's very individualized. I think immunizations or shots in general are very much in all of our heads. We've all had an immunization or a shot before, and we don't usually have clear memories of exactly what it feels like. So most of the kids, after they get the shot, they're like, "What? That was it?" So if you reassure them along those lines, but also tailor it, not sort of building it up into a big process and stuff like that, that's oftentimes helpful.
That was one of my questions is, what have you found is not helpful with getting a child ready for a shot and perhaps making it a big deal?
Yeah, there's no question. With certain kids, just the anxiety of thinking about a shot can make the whole experience snowball a little bit. My own daughter, there's no question. With one of the years where she received a vaccine, she was thinking about it literally a month ahead of time, asking me about it and things along those lines of what it was going to be like. And you can help with the anxiety by sort of explaining the fact that all of us gets vaccines, everybody gets vaccines, and it's really not that bad a process. But if it's a situation where you feel like the child just by mentioning the word vaccine is going to have a meltdown as a result, what I oftentimes recommend is waiting till we're here, and then we sort of discuss it in an open forum so that the kids can express their concerns a little bit more directly that way.
And so you get to be the bad guy.
Ah, yes, I do like that. Yes, I get to be the bad guy on multiple occasions.
Why do some shots hurt more than others?
It's a good question. It's a variety of reasons. Some vaccines are done just under the skin, whereas some vaccines have to go actually into the muscle, so there can be difference in pain response for those reasons. Some of the vaccines are more basic, meaning we all have studied acids and bases, and both acids and bases sting a little bit. So when something's a little bit more basic, it sometimes will sting a little bit more. I also think, just from bad luck, when you put a needle into the arm, we're not like looking exactly where all the structures in your arm are, and sometimes it, causes a little bit more of a swelling in the arm as a result of us, just where we put it in type of thing. More bad luck more than anything else, but kids actually do really well. I mean, with a little bit of a Tylenol or Motrin after the vaccine, warm compress if it's bothering them too much, they do extremely well, and it feels better very quickly.
Are those coming more into usage, oral vaccines versus shots?
The oral vaccines that we've used before in the past, we used to have an oral polio, for instance, but we actually found that the oral polio vaccine wasn't probably as good as like the shot version of the vaccine. So there are definitely a lot of the vaccines that don't work well in an oral preparation. So as a result, no matter what we do, we're most likely going to have shots, for a long time to come. People are trying, though, to limit the amount of actual shot aspect of things. So, for instance, nowadays we have a lot of vaccines that are combined shots. So instead of being 3 individual shots, it's 1 shot which is combined all together, which is definitely nice in terms of like if somebody's worried about the shot process itself, at least it limits them to 1 shot instead of having multiple shots. There are a couple oral vaccines, like you said. There's a nasal spray for the flu vaccine, which is out there, and there's an oral rotavirus shot or vaccine, which we give the newborns. But at least right now, most of the vaccines that we know of that are out there right now will probably continue to be a shot for the time being.
So we'll be living with that and having these discussions for.
Sad but true. Yes.
Have you found that some parents hesitate to immunize their kids simply because they don't want to see their kid in pain?
I think as a parent myself, as you are a parent, like none of us like to see our kids in pain and things along those lines. So I definitely think that it's not just the children that get anxious about the vaccines, but I think the parents get anxious about it as well. None of us like to see our kids cry or anything along those lines. But at the same time, most parents, when you sit down and talk to them, they really understand that, a little bit of pain right now will prevent, significant diseases later on. So most people, even though it makes them a little anxious, are able to get through it.
And probably doesn't hurt to promise ice cream afterwards.
Yes, a little bribery gets you everywhere with kids, I agree.
This Healthy Highlight is brought to you by Dartmouth-Hitchcock and Ledyard National Bank, working together with our community partners to improve your well-being.